Today we are talking menopause. It is Menopause Awareness Month. This week I did a talk for 50 women and I didn't record it. So I'm going to do the talk again in my office so that lots of you can hear it. My name is Dominique Ludwig and I'm a nutritionist. So when we think about the menopause, we think about those really obvious symptoms. We think of things like mood swings, hot sweats, hot flashes. We forget that the menopause hits so many other areas in our body and can affect us in so many different ways. So it can start at the head. We might get hair loss, we might have more anxiety, irritability, it might affect our sleep, we might have brain fog. We might find that our thyroid is affected through the menopause and actually changes in the way it works. Our heart and cardiovascular system change in that we increase our risk of cardiovascular disease as we go through the menopause. We have changes sometimes in our digestion. Sometimes we become constipated. Sometimes we develop a spare tire that we didn't have before. We may get a dry vagina. There are so many different symptoms. Even joint pain can be associated with the menopause. So what's happening and what can we do about it? Well, the first thing to think about is the menopause itself, or women's hormones, are like an amazing symphony in an orchestra. So men produce hormones as well, but their testosterone is very stable throughout most of the month. So they don't have those daily variations that women have. When our hormones are working during our fertile years, it's like this incredible orchestra conducted by our hypothalamus and our pituitary gland in our brain, making this symphony throughout the month. We start off the month and maybe the violins are coming in and they build up to a crescendo, and that's when we ovulate and we feel on top of the world. We feel like we can get things done. We're really on fire. And then all of a sudden we go, right, no, the violins can stop now. And we're going to have the drums coming in and they're going to be building up through the last 2 weeks of the cycle. That might be the progesterone coming in and trying to get rid of the old estrogens, and around PMSy time. Some people suffer more than others, but we've got this whole symphony playing out where our hormones are different on every day of the month and we can feel very, very different. Then in the menopause, it can be like all the instruments are playing all at the same time or whenever they feel like it, and some of the instruments are flat, and that normal symphony that we have is very disrupted and it can make us feel not quite like ourselves. So what can we do about it? Well, one of the things we can do is get our hormones checked and find out where we are in the perimenopause or menopause. But what can we do naturally? What lifestyle measures can we bring in that may improve our symptoms? And they are things like, first of all, our diet. So diet's really important. So what are we eating every day? How can that affect our estrogen? Well, we know that if we eat foods that cause a lot of blood sugar spikes and then dips, that can affect our overall estrogen levels and our estrogen balance. So it can exacerbate some of the symptoms. So go back and think, what are you eating in the morning? What are you starting your day with? Are you starting your day with a bowl of Special K because that's what we've been told is going to help us with all that unruly weight gain that's coming on? Or are we grabbing a piece of toast? Or like so many women I see in clinic, are we just eating sporadically throughout the day? And often when I ask women in clinic what their diet is like, they often remember the evening meal, the meal they've prepared for the family that is balanced and really good and has loads of nutrition in it, but they're almost forgetting about the grabbed cup of coffee, the forgotten lunch, or the meal grabbed in the service station while they were filling up on the fuel. And it's how we start the day. So news alert, coffee is not a breakfast. So coffee, if you have it too early in the morning, can cause a bit of a cortisol rush, which can then affect our blood sugars, which can affect our hormones. So coffee first thing in the morning might not be your friend. You may be better having your coffee when you've had something to eat. So thinking about how you start the day. What we want to do is be focusing on things like proteins and fibre and healthy fats, because they're the things that stabilise our blood sugars. So rather than grabbing toast and cereal or an almond croissant on the go, think about what you're going to have for breakfast. Are you going to have yogurt, fruit, flax seeds? Are you going to have porridge? So really try and make the breakfast the meal that you start the day, something that's blood sugar balancing, and then throughout the day, are we eating enough vegetables? Lots of women I see in clinic just eat their vegetables in the evening. It's so important that we're eating them all through the day. You're never going to get through 8 portions of fruits and vegetables, which is what I recommend if you're saving them all to the evening, because we just won't have the capacity. So really think about what you're eating and your blood sugars. The second thing is do you love your liver? Your liver works really hard all of the time, and one of the main jobs of the liver is to get rid of your old hormones. So when estrogen has done its job, we send it to the liver and we can make more, then we make more estrogen as we need it. So when we send it to the liver does something really clever. It goes through the detoxification pathways and it wants to excrete it from the body. And the way it does that is by almost wrapping it up in an invisibility wrapping paper, and it wraps it up and it sends it off to the gut, and the gut then shoots it out into the toilet eventually. But these packages can't dock onto your estrogen receptors. They are therefore inactive forms. So you've got these forms of estrogen wrapped up like a present, which then go through the bowel. So in order to do that, we can boost that function a little bit. So the foods that really help our liver, I'm going to come back to those parcels because there's more on that story. But the things that boost our liver function are things like cruciferous vegetables. So they're the ones that people often don't like because they're bitter. Brussels sprouts, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, rocket, radishes, all of those vegetables that have got that bitter tang can support lots of our detoxification pathways like glucuronidation, glutathione, and the sulfation pathways. So they are particularly useful in getting rid of those old estrogens, getting them out of the way. Imagine your liver and estrogen a bit like a bathtub, and you want the estrogens to keep flowing through and going out the other end. Imagine you've got a blockage in that bathtub and it just keeps filling up with estrogens. What happens is then that they back up in the system, and the thing when they start to back up is they can change their form slightly and become slightly more aggressive forms of estrogen, ones that are more mutagenic, carcinogenic. They're the ones that give us the mood swings. They give us all the symptoms we maybe don't want around our perimenopause and menopause. And we want to try and make sure that there's no blockage in the bathtub and the estrogen keeps flowing through. So I always describe estrogen, there's 3 types. There's Cinderella and the 2 ugly sisters, and we want lots of the Cinderella estrogen because that makes us feel great. It helps our serotonin, it keeps our blood vessels elastic, and we like her, so we want to keep lots of her around and not so much of the ugly sister. So we need to get the bathtub moving. So eat your cruciferous vegetables every day. The other thing that's quite useful is alliums. So onions, garlic, spring onions, leeks, things like that can increase our sulfation pathways in the liver, which can help normal liver detoxification. And some women just need a little bit more of our B vitamins, particularly the methylated B vitamins and magnesium, to boost some of those pathways in the liver. And then let's move on to the gut. So there's another area that's really important in the perimenopause and menopause, and that is the gut. The gut has its own ecosystem, as we know, called the microbiome, but there's a part of that called the estrobolome, which is responsible for estrogen metabolism. And the estrobolome can affect the way that we actually process the estrogen. It's an interaction between estrogen and our gut bacteria. Now, what can happen is we can end up with a disbalance, or we call it dysbiosis, an imbalance of gut bacteria. So some of those gut bacteria may not be present in big enough amounts, or we may find that we don't have the natural diversity in there. So what happens with those? Let's go back to the parcels that come through. So the parcels that come through into the gut should pass out the other end. Now, constipation is a problem here. If you're constipated, we can start to recycle those packages. But what can also happen is that some bacteria in our guts, such as E. coli or Clostridium, which are there naturally anyway, can produce an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. And that enzyme can unpack those, remember the packages that have been wrapped up in invisibility wrapping paper, and they find the packages and say, wow, what's in here? And they release the estrogen back into the system and back into the bloodstream again. And so we've now got too much estrogen. And sometimes in the menopause, it's not that we've even got too much estrogen, but we're just not processing what we've got properly, or we've got a lack of progesterone, so that we're not able to keep the estrogen. I always call progesterone, actually, it's like having a teacher in the room, and estrogen's like having lots of naughty children. If you put the progesterone in, normally the estrogens start to behave a little bit better. So yes, the beta-glucuronidase, it's a substance, some people have more of it in their gut than others. We can test for it. But it means that we've got more recirculation going on, so it can go back into the bloodstream. And yes, constipation is the other thing we really need to be aware of. So if you are somebody that gets constipated, you really need to start upping your fibre and looking at, are you getting 30 grams of fibre a day? If not, increase foods like chia seeds, linseeds, avocado. Raspberries are a fantastic source of fibre. They contain about 7 grams per 100 grams, whereas strawberries only contain about 1 gram per 100 grams. So making little switches to our diet can have a big difference. Things like beans and lentils are great. Switching your pasta to green pea or yellow pea or red lentil pasta. You can even get rice made out of red lentils and chickpeas. So looking at making those swaps to try and up your fibre, but really if you can try and add an extra 7 to 10 grams a day, that has been shown to reduce our risk of many chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease, cancer, obesity, type 2 diabetes. So swapping out your rice maybe for frozen peas. There's lots of little changes that you can do, or you can follow my fibre challenge, which you can buy off my website or from my Instagram link in bio. So these are just little tips you can make. So I would say, number one, think about your breakfast and consider during the day where you're getting your protein from, your healthy fats and your fibre. Are you making your lunches and your and dinners a considered meal? Do you actually think about what's going to go in there? Are you loving your liver? Can you eat one piece of cruciferous vegetables and one from the allium family every day? And then also think about your gut. Is everything moving through? So I hope that helps. It's just a little insight really into how nutritional therapists think about the menopause and how we tackle it from a lifestyle medicine perspective. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed it, follow. If you've enjoyed it, share. Thank you.